Hello and welcome back. In this video we're going to be adding UI to the game, and I'll start off here in the content folder, and I'm just going to make a new folder called UI because I want to keep things nice and organized. And we're going to make a new right click user interface widget blueprint, and typically with widget blueprints I like to put WBP underscore and then the name of it. Because this is going to be my main in-game HUD, I'm just going to call it in-game. Okay, so let's go into the in-game, and I'll start out by just adding a image. Drag that onto the canvas panel, or you can drag it on to here. And I'm going to call this crosshair image. And if we go to anchors, I'm going to anchor it to the center of the screen. This means no matter how big or small my screen is, it's going to always appear in the center of the screen. And then from there, I'm going to press 0 for the position and 0 for the Y position as well. And then under the alignment tab, I'm going to type in 0.5, 0.5 to align it right to the center. And we're going to go to the brush here, and under the image, if you click and just go down to the search bar, type in crosshair. There should be one called crosshair there, and you can see there it is there. Now if we go into the game right now, we actually already have a crosshair. That's due to something called the HUD, but we're not going to be using that. So go into first person BP blueprints and then open up the HUD, and you can see it's drawing this crosshair to the screen, but we really don't want to use the HUD. The HUD's a little outdated and typically doesn't really see much use in Unreal games anymore. Or if it is used, it's used as kind of a general helper class, but we certainly don't want to draw the crosshair in here, so we can delete everything inside of it and then compile and save and go back to in-game. Now I'm going to set the size of my crosshair. I want to make it 16 by 16, and that should be pretty much all we need. Now, how do we get this to show up in game? Because I've made my HUD, and you can see it's got a little crosshair on it. But this doesn't show up anywhere in game. If I hit play, you can see we don't have a crosshair, and we need to add the crosshair in. So we have to figure out how we're going to be doing that. So let's see here. I'm going to start off in my player controller, and from here we can make a event to add the in-game HUD to the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new event, and we're doing this inside of the controller because remember, the controller is kind of the part of the character that you can't see, and it almost acts as the soul of your player, and so it really makes sense for our HUD to be stored in there as well. So I'm going to call this show in-game HUD, and when we begin playing the game, drag off and show the in-game HUD. And now we need to actually make our in-game HUD. So I'm going to drag off, but before I do that, we need to make sure that, because begin play is going to be called for every controller in the game, but we don't really want to do HUD stuff unless it's our controller, not someone else's controller, but our one. So to make sure it's our local controller, you can type is local controller. Because remember, it's a networked game. There are tons of other players as well. So this allows us to check if it's actually us, basically. So we're going to use a branch here. And if it is us, if it is the local controller, we're going to use this create widget node here. And then as the class, we're going to select widget blueprint in game. And the owning player is us, aka self. Once we've created the in-game HUD, we can store it in a variable so that we can access it later if we want to do something like maybe remove it from the screen, or I don't know, do something along those lines. So right click on this node and click promote to variable, and we're going to call this in-game HUD. And under the character category, we'll put widgets. Now that we've made the widget, the last thing we need to do to actually put it on the screen is use something called add to viewport. And actually, if we drag out from here, add to viewport. Okay, and that's going to add the actual HUD to the viewport. So now if we compile and save and hit play, you can see our cursor is back. And it's a little bit smaller this time because this is actually the UI on the screen. Now obviously just having a crosshair is not very impressive, so let's go ahead and add some other information to the screen. We're going to add like the name of the weapon, we're going to add the amount of ammo you have, and we'll also add a health bar. So we'll start by doing a vertical box. So search the palette for vertical box. A vertical box is basically a container that can fit many different widgets inside of it. So as you can see, these things are widgets. The canvas panel is a widget, the crosshair is a widget, any buttons would be widgets, and so on. So we'll go ahead and drag the vertical box and dump it on the canvas panel here. And you can see the box has appeared in the top corner of the screen, but I actually want to have it down the bottom. So we're going to go to anchors, click on this one here, and then set the position to be 0, 0, so that it's down here. And you'll notice it's actually not in the screen bounds anymore. So just set the alignment on the Y to be 1, and you'll notice that it pops back into the view. And now what we're going to do is set the position to be 50 on the X. Actually, let's do 25 on the X. And we'll go with, say, negative 100 on the Y. And we'll just, for the size, we'll do something like 1000 wide. And we won't worry about the height yet. So what we're going to do is drag some text onto the vertical box, and so this is going to be our weapon name. So go ahead and click on the text block and check the box that says is variable, and I'm going to call this weapon name text block. Or actually we can just do weapon name text, and for the text I'll just put weapon name for now, and then we're going to fill that in a second so that it says the name of your weapon. Let's think about how we're going to actually put the weapon name in here as text. Now, the easiest way to do it, and this is the way I'm going to do it actually, is if you go to text, you can actually bind the text to something. And what you're binding it to is a function, basically. So if you click this bind button here and then click on create binding, we're going to make a binding that will get the weapon name. So here's the function here. Press F2 to rename it. And we're going to rename it to get weapon name text. And this is going to be a really simple function. All it's going to do is it's going to get the owning player pawn, aka our character. That's the easiest way to get our character. There are other ways to get our character, but when you're inside UI and you want to get the character, always use get owning player pawn, and then we're going to cast it and check if the pawn is a BR character, which it should be. And in that case, we can then get the player's weapon. And then from there, we can make sure that they actually have a weapon by using isValid. And if the player does have a weapon, what we're going to do is we're going to get the weapon name. So just drag out from weapon and get weapon name, and then you can plug that into the return node here. And if we don't have a valid weapon, we're going to return. So add a return node. And if we're not controlling a BR character, so if this cast fails, we'll also just do this. And we're going to leave that empty so that no text appears if we don't have a weapon. So now let's go ahead and jump into the game, and you can see that in the corner of my screen, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see it says assault rifle. Let me just do this instead. Here we go. So notice it says assault rifle in the bottom corner of my screen, and if I take let's put a scoped weapon in the game, so blueprints, pickups, and we'll drop the scoped rifle pickup into the game, and we'll take the scoped rifle, and you can see that the name changes when I take the scoped rifle. So now we have some HUD on the screen saying the gun that we have. The next thing we're going to do is add some ammo to the screen. Adding ammo is pretty easy as well. It's very similar to do, so let's go back to our UI, open up our in-game, and we're going to go ahead and duplicate this weapon text by hitting Control W, and now we have this one called weapon name as well. But I'm going to change this so it's ammo text. And we're going to do the exact same thing. I'll just type in some filler text for now, like 32 out of 160 or something. That's how we're going to display this information. So go ahead and click on bind, and we're going to call this binding get weapon ammo text. and we're going to use something called a format string. If we go back to get weapon name text, we can actually copy and paste this because it's very similar what we're doing. So we want to get the character. If we can get the character, we want to get the amount of ammo they have in the weapon. So get ammo. So get current ammo and get current spare ammo. And then out of the return node, we're going to drag off and type format text. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do curly brackets and say current ammo out of current spare ammo. So do a little slash and then press enter. And then plug that in. So that should work now. If we go into the game, let's go ahead and take a, well, here's the assault rifle. So I'm going to shoot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We reload. And you can see the reload works perfectly, and we can see the ammo in a gun. How cool is that? It's really easy to add UI in Unreal. I love the system of binding. It's super, super simple to use. We could probably make this text a little bit bigger as well. There should be like a font size thing in here. So you might want to go with like 36 or maybe make it look a little stylish. We could do a oversized ammo. That looks pretty good. The last thing that we need is we need the amount of health the player has, and this is pretty easy to do as well. Let's take this vertical box and we'll just move it up a little bit. We'll do -150 just to give it a bit more space. And to the vertical box, we want to add a progress bar. So type in bar and then drag the progress bar into the box here. And that's it. And you can set the color of the bar. So I'm going to do that now. I'm just going to make it red. Feel free to make your bar whatever you want. And we'll set the percentage to be 1. And that's what it's going to look like when you have full health. I also want to put a little health, a little plus health marker next to the health bar, because it's not very obvious that that is a health bar right now. So what I'll do is I'll right click on the progress bar and I'll go down to wrap with, and I'm going to select a horizontal box. So there it is there. And then click on the, under the horizontal box slot, just click on fill so that it fills up all the room. And then go down to text and drag a text into your horizontal box and click on the text and then click this little left arrow and it will reorganize it. And then you can just, under the text, just put a little plus there. So now you can look at this and go, oh, this is a health bar. You can also give it a little bit of padding. So I'm just going to do like 20, 0 up here. And notice that gives it a little bit of padding, so it just looks a little more presentable. And yeah, there's our health bar. Really cool. So to fill in the health bar is quite simple. You can see there is a percent value, and if I put this to say 0.5, you'll notice that it's going to be half full and 1 is full. So all we have to do is bind this value. So it's going to be reasonably simple to the first one. So again, we'll just copy and paste some of this stuff here. And I'm going to rename this function to get health percent. And then we can paste this stuff in here. Oh, I can't paste for some reason, so let's just do. We're going to cast to our BR character. We are going to get the amount of health that our player has left, so get health. And what we want to do is to figure out this percentage between 0 and 1, we need to take the amount of health we have and divide it by the starting health. So get starting health. And then what we'll do is we will divide and then just plug that in. And if we're not a character, then we'll just use a value of 0. Or we'll use a value of 1 actually. And that should work. So let's go into our game and we'll hit play. And you can see I have full health. And if I shoot someone, you can see my health has actually gone down. So the health bar is working as we intended for it to. Okay, the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to display a prompt on the screen when you get close to a pickup so that you actually know that you can press E to pick it up, because otherwise you'd have no idea. And right now, it doesn't tell you when you're near a pickup and you can take one. So Let's add that in. That'll be quite easy. That's just another text that we'll need to add to the screen. So just drag and drop another text onto the screen, and we're going to anchor it to the center. And the alignment, we're going to do 0.5. And for the position Y, let's do something like 50. Or let's try 120. And we're going to say, we'll do square brackets with the E in it. And then I'll just say take assault rifle. And while we're at it, we'll align the text to be centered as well. And then we'll make them nice and wide. Oops. I want to change this here to about 500. Okay. And we need to bind this as well. We're going to say get pickup text. And you know the drill by now, it's just the same thing. We're going to be getting the player. For some reason I can't paste, so I'm just going to do it this way. So we're going to cast to be our character. We're going to check if the character has a current weapon pickup in front of them. So get weapon pickup. Check if we have a pickup or not. So if we do have a pickup, we need to get the weapon to give. We need to get the defaults because we need to get the name of the weapon. So now that we have the name of the weapon, we can do a format text, square brackets, E, take, curly brackets, weapon, name, and then just plug the weapon name in like that. And we're going to copy and paste the return node, and we're just going to return nothing if we don't have a pickup or if we don't have a BR character. So with all that done, we're going to hit save and then go back into the game and see if it works. So let's walk over to a gun, and you can see it says press E to take assault rifle. If I press E, it takes it, and the same thing should work for the scoped rifle. So there we go. We now have some basic HUD on the screen. Nothing too fancy, but it's a good starting point anyway. So with that added, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video where we're going to add a spectator system. See you guys in the next one.